Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler. This is an odd episode because this is actually a replacement for an existing episode that will be removed when this episode is added to the channel instead. Kind of an odd situation where we had an episode that sort of talked about an item without actually showing it at the time. And may I say here as an aside, if you hear any music, I apologize. Neighbors across the street are having a big get-together thing, but this is my one opportunity to record, so I can't really wait until their music dies down. I think most of it will be filtered by the iPad anyway. But the item in question was a version of the Volume 1 Clone Wars Micro Series DVD release in the US through a club store that came with a comic book. Now, it wasn't an exclusive comic or a variant cover or anything like that. It was a standard retail version of a particular comic, except it was packaged with that DVD, which made that package itself into an exclusive specific to a certain store, though we didn't really know which store for certain at the time. So, because that was something I hadn't really seen, we looked at the regular DVDs. We looked at the long box packaging from several different variations, thanks to Matt Fry donating those into my collection. But then when Matthew Fox ran into that oddball that was packaged with the comic, it's the only time I had ever seen it. I didn't expect to be able to necessarily get it anytime soon, but I wanted to be able to cover it in some way, both in the book and on the show. So we did an episode where basically I talked about what it was and showed you the other long boxes, and then showed you the comic that's packaged with it without being able to show you the packaging itself. Well, thanks to an eBay auction, and more on that and some eBay douchebaggery here in a moment, I was able to finally get my hands on this. Only the second time I have ever seen one of these in existence. One in Matthew Fox's collection, and the one that I just picked up. If anything, it seems like this is even more hard to come by, which blows my mind, than the Galaxy Divided Clone Wars DVD variant with the poster from Toys R Us, which I thought was by itself one of the most rare items I've ever seen, and this takes the cake for that, at least as far as secondary market in the modern era. So we are going to take a look at that release, now that I finally have my hands on it, but also the other long boxes for comparison, the regular release, and so on, just to kind of give us a full context here of this long box anti-theft packaging product line for the Clone Wars Micro Series as far as I know it. But in doing so, that's going to render that previous episode where we just kind of described it and talked about the comic pretty much moot. So that's going to be gone. It's redundant. This episode is taking its place with the same episode number. So, in 2005, you had seen the Clone Wars Micro Series sort of wrapping up on Cartoon Network, and as part of providing that on physical home media, they took the first two seasons, combined them into what they called Volume 1, took the second season, combined them into sort of a film version for Volume 2, and released two different DVD products to give us the entirety of the Clone Wars 2D Micro Series, as it's being called now on Disney+. Back then we just called it Clone Wars or the Clone Wars Micro Series. The regular DVD release was this for Volume 1, and this for Volume 2. Volume 1, we saw, had multiple anti-theft club variant packaging at different places, whether we're talking Sam's or Costco or wherever, places like that. This was the generic 20th Century Fox version of that packaging, which we've seen on other things before. Then you had a product-specific version. We've looked at this one before. We will come back to that for some comparison purposes in a moment. And then weirdly, when the second volume came out and got its own special packaging, they repackaged the original volume, which didn't match any of the stuff on the packaging, in that same type of long box here. So one long box version that we know of for Volume 2, but then for Volume 1, you have generic, original run, then alongside Volume 2. This other one, this exclusive version that includes the comic, is sort of a riff on this one, presumably released around the same time. Now, there was some question as to where it might come from. What I noticed here when going through these and taking pictures for the book is that on the bottom, it has your product information here, and it ends with GEN. Many of these have either gen or generic on the bottom of the packaging somewhere to let you know sort of which product variant it happens to be. And the one we're looking at today, as sort of our focus, has a, well, I'll show you here before I even show you the product. It ends in BJ. So, given that Bill Clinton was out of office by this time, my assertion would be that that BJ actually refers to BJ's Wholesale Club. So, that must be where this was exclusive to. And I know that joke was a bit of a stretch. At least I didn't make my normal joke. When we're driving through Noonan, Georgia, and we pass BJ's Wholesale Club, I always laugh and joke to my wife, you know what? I can't believe that if prostitution is illegal, there's actually a wholesale club for BJ's. But boom, I say it every time she groans, every single time. I cannot help myself. It is a compulsion to make that joke. So, yeah. Anyway, this is that exclusive product. Incredibly rare, really good condition. It looks like it's a little bit like creased or something, but that's actually just the plastic wrap that's on it. Really, really good condition, especially for something where, again, this copy that I have in my hands is only the second time I've ever seen one of these at all. The first time being when Matthew Fox had it in his collection and showed it when he acquired it. So, we have, for the first time on DVD, the big window with the actual DVD showing through it, with its sticker on the actual DVD, not on the shrink wrap here. That says Emmy Award, or I guess Emmy-winning series as seen on Cartoon Network includes all 20 chapters. Right, kind of false advertising, right, because there are actually 25. Anyway, then it says a product protected by anti-theft device. Includes bonus 96-page comic book. Then we have Anakin versus Ventress there on the bottom. If that looks familiar, it's from the back of the DVD. Then Spine, we have 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, Star Wars, Clone Wars Volume 1. We have the ARC Trooper down here, THX, Cartoon Network, and Lucasfilm. Now the other side is almost the same, but it swaps out the ARC Trooper for a Super Battle Droid. For what it's worth, by comparison here, and we'll compare the front and the back as well. Notice here that on the other one, which is actually narrower because it doesn't need to have the space for the comic and everything here, on the regular version, you've got just Anakin on either side of it. Then the back, you see the comic through in this case, for the first time on DVD. Again, there's the comic. This one has a bunch of information actually about the product, including its various special features. Then you got this image here, right? Mace and the troopers in battle, and your little barcode down there. Again, the bottoms are updated for each one with, you know, the necessary stuff down there, but the product number that helps give away the fact this was from BJ's Wholesale Club as opposed to Sam's or Costco or somewhere like that. Again, for a comparison here, the comic book notation is not needed on the regular one, and it is a different image at the bottom, otherwise designed similarly. And then for the back, again, designed somewhat similarly at the top where it does have the first time on DVD thing, but the barcode sticker, which was removed from this one because it was in plastic wrap originally, you can see is kind of like over that barcode there. In this case, because the barcode is actually showing through the packaging, whereas it's not over here. And then, if you want to know about what's on the product, you could sort of read, even though it's kind of blocked on the edge, sort of read about the product there on the back of the DVD, but since this one doesn't show the back of the DVD, they have to put it down here, and the images wind up being different down there on the bottom. The tops are, again, sort of that same kind of standard type, but you can see through here the comic as well. What is the comic in this case? The comic is, I got this separately, just a regular retail copy of Clone Wars Adventures Volume 1. This was the Genndy Tartakovsky micro series as it was spun off into a digest series of comics from Dark Horse Comics. This came out in 2004, by the way. This is Volume 1, July 2004. Includes stories by Hayden Blackman, with various art. Philbach Brothers was one of the groups that, the pairs, who did a lot of the art for this series. This is before they went to the glossy pages for the digests here. But yeah, it's just a standard retail version. So if you're someone who collects the comics, unless the variant concept for the comic is just the fact that it was packaged with the DVD, this wouldn't be a necessary thing to pick up. As opposed to, say, Shipyards of Doom, when it was from the Clone Wars Digest, the first issue of that one too, from the regular The Clone Wars Digest series later in 2008, when that was packaged in with Clone Wars movie releases from Target, that one was actually a variant cover. Or the 2006 limited edition DVD releases of the original trilogy from Walmart that came with a comic that also had a variant cover. Most of the time, we saw these variant covers, which meant that you not only had home video fans trying to track them down, but also comic collectors. Not this time. The comic is just a regular old retail comic. Thank goodness. Which means that for this, since this is in it, and this is in it, and these are just kind of regular stuff, it really is just the packaging and the fact that it is all packaged together that makes this unique. But it is yet another of these long box package versions, which are already tough to find, of the Clone Wars micro series to add to the Star Wars home video library. I'm very glad I managed to find that. I did promise you, I guess, the story of the douchery of it, I believe. Basically, this popped up on eBay. I was like, whoa, holy crap, it's actually there. And for me, I get a lot of anxiety when it comes to trying to grab something on eBay if it's just an auction. Because if it's an auction, I need to make sure to put in a bid, but I want to make sure that mine is the winning bid, so I got to pay really close attention when the auction is about to end. I need to put it on my calendar. I need to set a timer or an alarm for it. It's really just kind of a pain. And those last couple of minutes are extremely nerve-wracking to try to make sure that I'm able to snag whatever it is. So, since it was showing up as, relatively low starting bid, and it was only set up as an auction, I did reach out to the seller asking, hey, would you be interested in perhaps switching this to make an offer, like the little make an offer button, so that perhaps I could pick it up? And for your trouble, I sort of highballed an estimate. For your trouble, if you're willing to do that, I'll actually offer straight up $150 flat right now. Now, normally would it have sold for $150? I doubt it, despite the rarity, because most people wouldn't know what they were really kind of looking at, or maybe necessarily have even found it showing up on a listing. But I said, I'll give you $150 for it if you'll just switch it to make offer, and I'll make the offer immediately. What do you say? To which they responded, very politely, no, I don't really know a whole lot about this. I don't see many of them around, so I'm not going to switch to that at this point. Thank you very much. Very politely. And then changed the starting bid to $149.99. So instead of accepting my offer, took my offer to set up a new minimum bid for the product. There's a part of me that says, you know what, if this person thought that someone would be willing to pay that, and they're like, ooh, I must revise my auction because I lowballed it, that kind of makes sense. Maybe. On the other hand, that's a pretty damn douchey thing to do. If you're not willing to sell it for that at the time, but by putting it in there, it's like, well, if he was willing to pay $150 for it, he'll do the bid, so he'll probably win. Or you could see it as, well, he might buy it, so I want to make sure I at least get the minimum that he was willing to get out of it, or to pay for it out of it, so I'm going to make sure it's not possible for it to sell for lower even to this guy. It's hard to describe it accurately. It's like this weird, it's like an 80% douchey, 20% maybe not, or maybe it slides on a different scale in there somewhere. But suffice to say, yeah, my offer got turned into the starting bid after I made the offer. Had I not made the offer and nobody else had bid on it, I would have been able to get it for a lot cheaper. On the other hand, I do know that at least a couple of people in the Star Wars Home Video group saw when the starting bid changed and said, you know what, too rich for my blood, and stepped out of it. So maybe him raising that to the starting bid, maybe that's what made it so that I had less trouble managing to get it when it finally came down to it. Hard to say, but that's kind of a douchey thing to do. If somebody is going to make an offer to you, don't immediately turn that into the starting bid after you reject the offer. That's just kind of it just doesn't sit right with me. It just seems like poor eBay etiquette. But it's the internet, so what the heck does etiquette have to do, apparently, with anything? But yeah, so finally, in my hands, I think rounding out the set. I don't think there are any more long box packages of this stuff available for Clone Wars. Then again, I didn't know this existed until Matthew Fox wound up snagging one, so it is possible I missed something somewhere, but that wraps up our current coverage so far of the stuff that I know of for the long boxes for the Clone Wars micro series, replacing that previous episode from a while back. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you to Matthew Fox for pointing out the existence of this a while back so that I could eventually hunt it down. May the Force be with the home video viewers.